Hi guys, it's Lucy, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the series that I finished in 2017. I finished 8 series in 2017. I'm just going to tell you like a brief synopsis of the series, what I rated each book in the series, my overall series rating, and whether I'm glad that I finished the series, and like what my overall thoughts were. First, I finished the Everyday Duology by David Levithan. Most of the series that I finished in 2017 were duologies. This isn't about an entity, I guess, called A, who switches bodies every day. So they're never in the same body twice, and like they don't have their own corporal form, I guess. And they just like take over that person's life for the day. And usually they try not to like make any waves or anything. They just try and go about that person's day as that person would normally. And that all changes one day. They meet someone who they start falling in love with. And the second book in the series is more of a companion where it just follows the same events as the first book, but it's told from the love interest point of view. And I gave the first book 4 stars and I gave the second book 3.5 stars. And yeah, as I was planning this video, I found out that there is a third book planned, which is actually a sequel, but there's no like release date for it or anything. So how much is it really planned? I don't know, but I'm still counting it as finished because when I finished the series, the third book wasn't planned as far as I know. I really liked the first book. I thought that the writing style was like very, I don't know, I just really enjoyed that writing style that David Levithan used. I don't really know how to explain it. I'm really glad I read the first book, but the second book didn't really feel that necessary, so it definitely wasn't necessary for me to read it, but I did. There is also a movie coming out very soon, I think in February, which I'm super excited to see. I think it's going to be really good. Not really sure how they're going to do it, but the trailer looks really good, so I'm definitely going to be seeing that. The next series I finished was the Tiny Pretty Things Duology by Sona Chirapocha and Danielle Clayton. I did a whole video about why I think you should read this duology, so I'm not going to talk about it too much, but I gave the first book, Tiny Pretty Things, 4 stars, and I gave the second book, Shiny Broken Pieces, 4.5 stars. So I really enjoyed this duology and I recommend you read it. I'll leave that video link down below, and my overall rating was 4.25 stars. The Wrath and the Dawn duology by Renee Adier. The briefest synopsis is basically that it takes place in a land where there is a boy king who takes a wife every day and then kills her every night. And so clearly the people are not happy about this. And then we follow our main character, Shazi, whose best friend ends up being taken as a wife and then subsequently murdered. And she decides that she's going to get revenge for her best friend and be the next wife of the boy king. And it follows from that and her trying to get revenge and like all the stuff that happens. And it's 2 books, it's duology, like I said. I gave the first book, The Wrath and the Dawn, 4 stars, and I gave the second book, The Rose and the Dagger, 4 stars as well. So the average rating was 4 stars. This was a 4-star series for me. It was good. I really appreciated the writing style, but some stuff like I just didn't make sense. Like the romance wasn't a high point for me. It is for a lot of people, but it was too insta-lovey for me. But it kind of gets better by the second book. It's a fun duology to read if you're interested. There are also a bunch of little novellas in the series that I'm not including. I'm not including novellas for any of the series that I'm talking about because most of the time I don't read them unless I really, really love the series. The Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. This is a futuristic sci-fi dystopian series where each book follows a different character and they're each retellings of a different Grimm's fairy tale. I think they're Grimm's, right? The first book, Cinder, is a retelling of Cinderella. Even though each book introduces a new character, like the old characters are still involved because it's like a big like thing. And yeah, it's a fun series to read. I gave the first book, Cinder, 4 stars. The second book, Scarlet, 4 stars. The third book, Cress, 4 stars. There is a longer novella that I am counting for this because it is like a whole book. It's like 200 pages, so like that's a book size, and so I'm counting that, which I read, and that was Fairest, which I also gave 4 stars, and the last book was Winter, which I gave 4 stars. So overall I gave this series 4 stars. It was an enjoyable series. I am glad that I finished it. It was a long gap between Fairest and Winter, but I'm glad that I did end up finishing it. I also realized that I'm no longer interested in this world or anything. Like, it's fun to read, but it's just not a super high priority for me. So I won't be continuing on with, there's like a graphic novel series that follows a different character that I probably won't be reading. And then all the novellas I don't feel like reading, so I won't be doing that. But I do recommend the series. if you're interested in like sci-fi dystopian retellings, it's like really fun to read, action-packed. Next, I finished The Monsters of Verity duology by Victoria Schwab. It's set in the future or another world, depending on whether it's sci-fi or fantasy. It's really unclear to me, but basically, in this particular city, there are monsters that are formed from violent acts that people commit, and we follow two characters from opposite sides of the city and how like they meet, what's going on, because they like have to like get rid of the monsters obviously, or like deal with the monsters, and it just follows that. The first book is The Savage Song, and the second book is Our Dark Duet, and I gave both of them 4 stars, so this was a solid 4-star series for me as well. I enjoyed reading it. I think I liked the first book better than the second book, even though I gave them both 4 stars, but yeah, it was good. I'd recommend it. It's a nice short duology. The Grisha Trilogy by Lee Bardugo. I'm sure you've heard of this. A lot of these I'm sure you've heard of actually. But this is set in a fantasy world where we follow a girl named Elena Starkov who discovers that she actually has powers that make her part of this powerful group of people called the Grisha, who all have like magical powers. It's about her like learning about her powers, learning about the Grisha, learning about all that, and like defeating evil. Basically, it's like one of those fantasy series, and it was really fun for me to read. It definitely had its faults, but it's like one of those, I want to say old school, but not really old school because it's not that old. I think the first book is from like 2012, but like, you know, that kind of fantasy, and I really enjoyed that. It's probably not for everyone, especially now, but I know a lot of people have love for it, and I do as well, and I can now start the Six of Crows duology, which was the entire purpose of reading the series, but I'm glad I read it, because it was actually an enjoyable series for me to read as well. The To All the Boys I've Loved Before trilogy by Jenny Han. This follows a girl named Lara Jean who every time she's like done with a crush, like she's basically over a guy, she like writes a letter to the guy saying like what she liked about them, like why she can't have a crush on him anymore, and like all these things, and then she like just keeps all the letters in a hat box. It's like kind of like a cathartic thing for her. But then one day all the letters she wrote gets sent out, and we follow the aftermath of that over this whole like series, and it's really good. It was supposed to be a duology, and then the 3rd book got released this year, and I read it and loved it. It was one of my favorite books of the year. This is just a really fun, like wholesome series to read, I guess. Like you just, I don't know, I just holds a special place in my heart. It makes me happy. I love Lara Jean, and yeah, so I definitely recommend it. If you're interested in YA contemporary, I think it's a good series to read. A lot of people find Lara Jean a little annoying, but I found her #relatable, so I don't know what that says about me. And so the series consists of To All the Boys I've Loved Before, which got 4 stars, P.S. I Still Love You, which got 4.5 stars, and Always and Forever Lara Jean, which got 5 stars for me. So my average rating for the series was 4.5 stars. As you can see, I really loved it, and yeah, definitely recommend. And the last series that I finished this year was the Queen of the Tearling trilogy, which takes place in a fantasy world. We follow Kelsey, who has just come of age, and the first book follows her journey to like ascend to the throne, and then like dealing with all the repercussions from her mother, like the previous queen, and it just follows the whole world based on like what they're gonna do now and like things like that. And it's like really good. It's very high political intrigue series. It's really good. I really like the series. The last book was very disappointing to me, but I still really like the series. So the first book is The Queen of the Tearling, which got 5 stars. I think when I first reviewed it, I gave it 4 or 4.5 stars, but like looking back, it was like the perfect start of the series. Like I just loved that first book so much. So yeah, 5 stars. And then the second book got 4 stars. The second book was The Invasion of the Tearling, and the last book was The Fate of the Tearling, and that got 3.5 stars. So a dramatic drop. My average series rating would have been 4.2 stars, but like I'm rounding it down to 4 stars. Still a very good series, and the last book isn't like bad. It just didn't end how I would have preferred it to end. It just ended in a way I wouldn't have preferred it to end, you know? I could have had it end like multiple other ways, but like that way was really not the way I wanted it to end. So yeah, but I still love this series, especially if you like more political series. Those are all the series that I read in 2017. I'm like in the month, no, not a month, in a year. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these series and how you like them, and let me know some of the series that you finished recently if you feel like it. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel because I make more videos where I talk about books. Again, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye!